Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. This is Varun. So previous sessions covered all you need to know, including the Python libraries required to start the basic analysis on any dataset. So if you haven't gone through those videos, I would recommend you to please go through it before starting this session. So now that we have learned basics of how analysis is done, we will look into one case study wherein the dataset has been given to us and we need to meet the objective using exploratory data analysis and conclude our findings. So there is this notebook placed in Github repository, which is investment analysis Spark funds, which basically describes the use case in the readme.md file, and the dataset has been given in the form of multiple files such as companies.txt, mapping.txt and rounds2.csv. Now let's first study the use case and then come up with a strategy to reach our goal. So the readme file says that the Spark funds make investment in few companies. The CEO of Spark Funds wanted to understand the global trends in investment so that she can take the investment decisions effectively. The objective is to identify the best sectors, countries, and a suitable investment type for making the investment. The overall strategy is to invest where others are investing, implying that the best sectors and countries are the ones where most investors are investing. Okay, so this means that we have to find the countries and their profitable sectors where most investors are investing. Now we have two more files here in this GitHub repository, which is investment.xls, where we will conclude our findings, and investment case study pptx, where we will present our results after the investigation. Okay, so now what I have done is I have downloaded the data set from the GitHub repository, and now we will first create a notebook and start exploring the contents of this data set. Now that we know the contents of a CSV, which is comma separated, okay, we'll just check it to verify. Okay, so this rounds.txt contains data something like this. Okay, so this should be appropriate to use, and then let's visualize the other data set, which is mapping.csv. So the contents of this also looks okay as far as the formatting is concerned. And now let's look at company.txt. So this seems to be a text file and the fields are separated by tab, it seems. Okay, there are a lot of gaps here. You can see that these are separated by tabs. So we will give the appropriate encoding and the separation while loading these files in pandas. Now what I have done is I have created the Sparks Fund investment notebook with these data sets in the same directory, and then I am loading the different data frames, which is companies.txt and rounds2.txt using the pandas data frame. So here, as we saw before, the companies.txt has a tab separation, so I have given a separator as tab and encoding as ISO 88591. So this is just for safety purpose, because this text can contain any Latin characters, then it might not be able to load it, but if you give this encoding, it will load it safely. So let's run this. Okay, so for both of the data set you will observe one common thing, that is permalink. Okay, so here is permalink and here it is company permalink in rounds 2. So this appears to be same with a little difference of the case of some of the letters. So we'll correct that, and we may have to use both of the contents of this data frame and this data frame. So for that purpose we will kind of merge it and use it, because that will be convenient. So this data frame contains permalink, name, homepage URL, category list, status, country code, state code, region, city and found at. And there are some specific columns in this data frame, which is funding round permalink, round type, then round code, funded at and raise amount USD. So some of the columns we may not use, so we may have to remove those. Now as planned, we will change the values of permalink and company permalink to lowercase, and we will use pandas series for that. So for just this column we need to do this. So I'm just doing pt.series, creating a map, and with a lambda I'm just taking each values and lowering the cases for those and then storing it in the same column. Okay, so for companies permalink and rounds to company permalink. And then next what I'm doing is I'm calculating the company permalink unique records. So n unique is the method that we use for calculating the unique records, and from the rounds 2 data set also we will be calculating the unique records, and then we may have to change the name of either company permalink or permalink to a common column. So right now what we are doing is we are changing the name of rounds to column to permalink, okay, instead of company permalink, and then we will merge the two data frames. So this will be inner join and it will be on permalink. So let's try and run these. Okay, so I'll execute this and let's now check what is there in both of the data frames. So I'll just print head of both, and then for rounds. Okay, so you will observe that it has changed the cases to lower in this column, and then let's check the unique records. So here it is 66368 and here it is 66370. So two more records are there here. Okay, now what we need to do is we need to change the column name. So I'll just change this. Okay, and now let's print this again. So right after this I'll do this dot head. Okay, so I'll execute this, execute it. So here you will see that company permalink is being changed to permalink, and now let's merge these two. Okay, so all the columns will be merged here, and so this will be a single data set that you will be seeing. Now let us calculate the record length after merging the data frame. Okay, and let us also figure out how much is the missing data in this data frame. So we can see that some of the columns like funding round code, then raised amount USD, homepage URL, category list, state code, country code, region, city, founded at have the maximum number of nulls in it. Now we don't require all the columns as we said earlier. So we will be removing some of the columns here. So I'll just remove these unnecessary columns which are funding round permalink, funded at, funding round code, homepage URL, state code, region, city and founded at, because those are not contributing enough in the final conclusion. So I'll just execute it, and then let's look at the final set of columns that are left with us. So these are the columns we'll be working now, and let us check what are the left nulls now in remaining columns. So these are the nulls. So some of them are in raised amount USD, some of them are in category list, and the rest of them in country code, and the number of records in the table are still the same. So we will be removing some of the rows in it and will be decreasing the records in the table. Now as you know that raised amount USD will be contributing in the final conclusion, so it has almost 17% of the records as null. So we will be removing those records which has the null in it. Also for the category list and country code we will be doing the same. Okay, so this line is doing the exclusion of rows which do not have the raised amount in it, and thereafter we are removing the country code and category list rows also which has null in it. So I'll execute this, and let's see now what are the nulls or what are the percentage of nulls in these columns. So you will be observing that there are no nulls now in the data set. Okay, so let's see what is the index length now. Okay, so previously it used to be 1,14,940, but now it is left with 88,528 rows only. But still the records are sufficient to be used for analysis. Now the question comes, we should have used the imputation techniques here for some of the null values, but we did not do it because we already have a lot of rows for our analysis, and we do not want the imputation to hamper the results. So that is the reason we have removed the records with the null values. Now let us calculate the average of raised amount USD across the funding round type. So for that we will be using group by clause. Okay, so for the master data frame that we just created, the final one, we'll just group by it by funding round type. Okay, so this will collect all the groupings, and then on that group we will do a mean of raised amount USD and sort it with the ascending order as false, that is in descending order we are sorting that. So this is for just checking which round type or which funding round type has been invested with good amount of money. So you can observe here that post IPO debt is the maximum, second one is the secondary market, and followed by private equity and post IPO equity. Now we will try and create some of the important data frames that we will use for further analysis. So we will be creating this master for plot. So from master frame, we are just taking the funding round type and checking if those have values in it. For venture, angel, seed and private equity, we'll just preserve it and use for further analysis. So now we will be importing some of the matplotlib libraries, and then we will be creating the bar plot for the raised amount USD on the y-axis and funding round type on the x-axis. So let's execute this. Okay, so this is clearly visible now that post IPO debt is the maximum, as we have seen by the figures earlier, and the equity crowdfunding is the least. Now the next step here is that we have to filter the data by funding round type. So there are two constraints majorly when we talk about Spark funds. First one is it wants to invest between 5 to 15 million USD per round of investment. So from this graph also we can figure out what is the ideal match for the funding type for us, or you can either refer to the figures we have mentioned here. So you can easily check that venture fits best here because it is in the range of 5 to 15 and which is closer to the rear end. So we will be going by this funding round type here. So now let's filter the data frame by venture funding round type. So I'll just execute this statement, and then you will observe that only venture types are coming here. And let's see the length also. Okay, so it has shortened down more to 47,809 rows. Now let us amend some of the columns here. Now as you have seen that category list contains a lot of sectors in it, like advertisement, mobile, web, development, wireless, biotech and others, and some of the columns or some of the cells contain multiple segments or sectors, but we are interested in the primary sectors, so we will be taking the first one here. Okay, so for that we will be writing this code where we are extracting from the category list only the first segment separated by the pipe. So we will split it by the pipe, take the first segment from it and then make it as a primary sector there. So I'll just execute it. Okay, so you see that now some of the columns which had multiple sectors are changed to only primary sectors, and now there is one more requirement or one more constraint that Spark Funds has, which is it wants to invest only in the English speaking countries because of the ease of communication with the companies it would invest in. So for that we have to juggle around with the country code and extract the English speaking countries out of them. Now before doing that we will be grouping by the country code and seeing the country funded with the highest funds, okay, to filter out majority of the countries. Okay, so here what we are doing is we are creating a duplicate of the master frame, which is top 9, and then doing a group by clause on the country code and doing the sum of raised amount USD and sorting it in descending order. So this will give us the countries which are funded highest. So USA, China and several other countries. So this is just the country code for it. Now we'll just print the index for all of these countries. Now next is we will be filtering only 3 countries from the top 9 countries. So we have to filter the English speaking countries. We have referred to 2 wiki links for that purpose, which will have the list of countries and territories and the ISO 3166 country codes. So these links I will be giving in the description also, and I have jotted down those country codes here, and we will now cross-reference the list we had for top 9 countries with the country codes which we have from these wiki links for English speaking countries, and we are just checking whether those country codes which are present here are English speaking or not by tallying from this list. So now we will first filter the top 9 countries. So I'll execute this statement and then we will be filtering by the country codes which are present here, okay, for English speaking countries. So you can see here now that it has returned us 4 countries, but we have to pick the top 3 countries. So here we will be picking only these. Now guys, remember that we have mapping.csv also as one of the data sets. So we load this and check what is the data inside it. So it has category list, as we had some category list in the master data frame here. So it might match. So you can notice that it also has some sectors here and its length is 688 rows. We will discard some of the NANs we encountered here in the category list. As you can see that some of the NANs might be there here. Okay, so you can see now one row has been removed which had NAN, and you can observe here for each of the category list like 3D or 3D printed, it is having values as 1 in either of the columns presented. Either it has entertainment, it has health or manufacturing, but it has 1 in either one of the columns. So there is no need of keeping all those columns. We can discard them and keep a simple single column with a value with it. So that is what we are doing in this definition of function. Okay, what we are doing is we are creating a label for that particular category. Okay, so you can see here that if automotive and sports has 1 in it, then it will return the automotive and sport in that as a label. So now we will be applying this function, okay, onto the same data frame and be storing into the separate data frame. Okay, so what we are doing is we are applying this label function and returning the string from it in the access one. So when we do this, you will see that this remains the same, which is 687, and when I print it, you will see that it now has only one column, okay, with the values. And now you will be seeing that some of the values here has 0 appended on that, and from common sense we can conclude that this 0 should be NA, okay, because this should be nanotechnologies, this should be natural language processing, this should be natural resources, and this is navigation. Okay, so some of the values were actually mistyped and kept in the data set, so we have to correct these anomalies. So what we will be doing is we will do an apply function and we will replace the zeros by NA. So let's do that. So now you can see that some of the values were corrected. You will not see here, but you will see once you dig deeper. Now we will be making a new data frame for evaluation with the primary sector values and the main sector values. So this is the primary sector and this is the main sector, and now we will be filtering the records of only the top 3 countries which are speaking English. So from the top 4 countries it will actually extract the top 3 countries and keep it in this data set. Now let's check the length of this English speaking data set. So it is 38,803, and for the master mapping it is 687. Now we'll do an inner join or both of these tables to get the entries of the mapping table into the main table and see what are the values in it. Previously the English speaking had 38,803 and now it is decreased to 38,788 rows. Now let us create the 3 data frames, each with a separate country code and with the raised amount which is specified. So we will be creating for USA first. So this has filtered now. Okay, you will be seeing only USA, and also the raised amount is in the limits of 5 million to 15 million. Now for the second frame, it is for GBR country. Now you will be seeing GBR here, and similarly for India we are creating the third data frame. Now we'll just see the statistics for each one of them. Okay, so the counts for each one of them are for D1, that is for USA, the counts are 12,063 rows. For GBR it is 621 rows, and for India it is 328 rows. And also we have printed the total investment amount of each of the countries. Now from the created data frames we will be making the general groups for each of the types. So we are taking main sector and we will be grouping it, and then we will be counting the raised amount USD for each of the sectors per country. Now let's execute this. Okay, so from USA you will be seeing that others have the maximum amount of investment, followed by social, finance, analytics and advertising, and clean tech, and then the news and health. For GBR it is likewise. Okay, but the numbers are quite less. Then let's see for India. So India also has the similar kind of hierarchy, but here the news comes at the top, whereas here news, research and messaging was at the bottom, but the numbers are lesser here. Now we will be seeing individually and calculating which companies received the highest investment in the sector first and second mentioned. So for each of the data frames I will be executing the same queries by changing the name of the data frame. So you can see the amount. Okay, so virtue stream has raised amount of this much, then electric cloud has a raised amount of this much, and then firstcry.com has a raised amount of this much. So for each of the countries, for USA this was the maximum invested company, in others, and then likewise for the other countries. Now we'll see the second sector. So for second sector also you can check here that the raised amount is quite high. Now for individual type of funding, we will see the share of market which it has captured globally. So as we know that we have various types of funding and seeing the market capture. So for venture, private equity and seed, you can see the raised amount in USD. Okay. Now what we are doing is we will see for each of the funding round type what is the market capture of those. So what I am doing is from the total raised amount of USD, we will be seeing what is the share for the venture one, then seed one, private equity and the angel. Let's check this. So venture occupies almost 2.61% of the investment in the global market. Okay. And others, as you have noticed, has 80%. We can even plot this as a pie chart, so we will do that also. So now guys, we will be sharing our analysis results with the help of some charts and some graphs. Okay, so the first one you are seeing here will plot the pie chart for the data set we just generated for the capture of different segments of the market. Okay, so you will see here that it has plotted this pie chart and it is showing that venture is capturing 2.61 of the total market share. Now the second graph will be showing the violin plot for identifying the target type of the investment with the outliers. So you can see that there are some outliers here. Okay, and these are plotted on the y scale with log. Now we can also plot the count of types. Okay, so for that we will be building another graph with the log type, and you will see that here the average funding in types of investment and the count of investment, you can identify which one is doing better. So private equity is undoubtedly doing fine and the counts of venture are more, but the raised amount in USD or the average funding is lesser. Okay, now this third plot says the top 9 countries with the country code and the funding in venture type. Okay, so you can clearly see that USA, China and GBR is doing great. But if we filter out the English speaking countries, we have already observed that USA, GBR and India were the top 3 countries in that. So now we have plotted everything in the same graph and we can see that USA had other sector doing better along with social finance and then the clean tech, and in GBR others was doing fine and then the social and then followed by clean tech, and in India others followed by the social and then the news. So from this it will give you a clear picture of where you should invest and where the Spark fund should invest according to the constraint it has formalized. Now guys, as we have reached the conclusion part, it is essential to present your findings to the management, and therefore preparing a PowerPoint or any other presentation is indispensable part that every data analyst or scientist should do. So in order to present the result, I have made this PPT, and this contains all the sections of what was the objective of the study and the goal and what path we followed to reach there in the form of flowchart. It has all the important plots which gives us a clear picture and helps us in decision making process. Also we have a conclusion section where we have written our suggestions. So it is clearly visible here that we have findings which says best countries have been identified as USA, UK and India. Best companies for investment have been identified as VirtuStream and ShortSpotter in USA, Electric Cloud and Celtic Technologies in UK, and firstcry.com and Mathan System in India. And in sectors, social, finance, analytics, advertisement is ranking the second in the best sectors after the others. So it is suggesting that it is safe to invest in USA in both VirtuStream and ShortSpotter, as they are tightly coupled with analytics and cloud services or any other top sector specified in USA. And it is also suggesting us the second best place to invest is in social, finance, analytics, advertising in India or UK. Now guys, this brings us to the end of this session. I hope you liked it. Please don't forget to subscribe my channel, hit a thumbs up on my videos and support it as much as you can. It gives me a great pleasure in coming up with more free and awesome content for you guys. Please reach out to me if you have any doubts on the sessions or want me to cover some more related contents on some topics. I will surely make it a point that I will make those videos. I will see you soon in the next session. Until then, thanks and take care.